Hello and welcome to The Wizard and the Priestess. My name is Nuala and this is...
Matt. I am Matt.
All right, guys, we're jumping straight in because this is today. And today we are going to talk about...
This is the follow-on from
Yeah.
Healthy Not So Healthy.
And what we're going to talk about is the good, the bad, the ugly in terms of diet.
Yep.
And take it away, Matt.
Well, how many different diets are out there?
A few. I wrote a few down. Do you want to hear my labels?
Sure.
We've got paleo, vegan, keto, vegetarian, carnivore, FODMAP, gluten-free, dairy-free, air-free, water-free.
Air-free? Yeah. Okay.
Carb-free.
Yeah. So there's a few out there. Last time I googled...
5-1. Oh, hang on.
It's 5-1, 5-2. All different ratios.
Yeah.
5-2. They're the fasty ones, aren't they? You know how
Yeah.
Nuala feels about that. So I think last time I looked up how many diets there were, I got over 14 million results.
14 million?
That's just the search engine number that came up. So after going through all of those, we came up with these top, how many were there?
There's a couple. I mean, we're not going to necessarily, we're going to talk, yeah.
No. So, okay, we've got this whole topic of nutrition/diet. Okay. Now, if you looked up something and found literally millions of answers for one question, what does that automatically tell you?
That it must differ.
It must differ, and not one person has figured it out.
Yeah.
And yet we've got a whole education system, indoctrination about it.
Yeah.
So you read a diet book, the Pritikin diet, the Atkins diet, all of those kinds of things, they're just a diet that works for that person or what they found beneficial for them. That's really it. Think about if you were to have one banana, cut it up in 10 pieces, give it to 10 different people, you get 10 different reactions. So how can one diet work for everyone?
It just
It
can't,
cannot.
Matt. It just
It
can't.
cannot, Nuala, but I won't stand for it.
I guess it's the whole thing with most things in this
Yeah.
world, right? There are a few things that we're pretty good, like pretty straightforward. You must sleep. You must actually eat. You must poo. You must breathe. But how you do all those things is pretty dependent on your own constitution,
Yeah. Yep.
environment, all the pieces.
Yeah. So these diets, so what was the first one?
Or do you want to go through them?
I'll just
That's
do
just
a
me throwing it
101.
out. Well, how about we start? I think we start with the vegan diet.
Okay. So vegan, I forget the definition of vegan. I think they've changed it again.
Sentient being.
No sentient
No
being.
consumption of a sentient being.
Then that's saying that plants aren't sentient beings, which research has shown conclusively that they are.
Okay, sorry. That must be the air diet. Breatharian.
Breatharian. Yep. Okay.
No consumption of.
No, anything really, except little particles in the air.
Yeah.
Little creatures in the air. Yep.
My child's a
So-
breatharian. She's thriving.
I'm leaving that alone.
Anyway, what do you want to say about that?
No, what was the breatharian?
Yeah, did you want to say anything?
Not really. That's not really. It is a diet, but that's for, I think, very extreme, ultra spiritual people are drawn to that type of diet.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
No, just that I've seen a few breatharians do like things on the internet, and they seem like they need less sleep. They consume a whole lot less, and they seem to have a whole lot more energy. I don't know whether they just breathe.
Would you recommend that for the average person out there?
Oh, probably not. No, I wouldn't say forget breathing though.
No, that comes in really handy.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along. Vegan.
Vegan. Isn't it anything by an animal or pollinated by an animal? I thought they changed the definition last few years.
Why would it be changed? I think
don't know,
vegan's been vegan.
because people change stuff all the
Yeah,
time.
okay, but I'm pretty sure, from my understanding, veganism is not the use or consumption of animal product.
So vegan, that's what the definition is.
Let's just say it is.
Yeah. Personally, I don't know that many healthy vegans.
That doesn't say anything,
I'm
Matt.
not saying don't do it. So I think for a lot of people, especially if they eat too much meat, going vegetarian or vegan can be really quite beneficial short term. As a lifestyle thing, it's not for me. I tried it for about 3 months and did not enjoy my
How
time.
you felt?
No.
Okay.
You said you were vegan, weren't you?
I was veganish.
Vegan. Oh, that's right.
I really, my reasons was ethical and to some extent, obviously, my values were a bit ishable. So I wasn't completely 100% no, yes. I didn't draw a line in the sand and, you
Bit
know.
of dabbling.
Yeah, but there was definitely aspects for me from an ethical standpoint that I felt that I would choose to be slightly less optimal in the way that I was and the way that I felt in the hope that that was going to have an impact on the greater good of the animals that were being used and abused. And I think I still have a piece of that inside of me that feels really like that. I was more vegetarian for quite a time, which included things like eggs and cheese and dairy. But yeah, there was definitely, whilst I was on my veganish journey, that you really realize how much, you know, an animal endures. And that was really big to, you know, to watch all of these cows. And, you know, I was up in last year or the year before, went away for a weekend or maybe a week. And we drove past a dairy farm. And when we drove one way to the waterfall we were going to, all the cows were on one side. And then when we drove back, they were being ushered in to be milked, their afternoon milking. And it felt, you know, all of these cows were essentially lactating, which made you understood that they had to have gestated a baby, and then now we're taking their milk from them in order to drink the milk. Where are their babies? I don't know, but now we have decided that milk is ours. And this was probably a fairly small farm. I imagine they were practicing organic practices, so probably not using like antibiotics or high doses of antibiotics. I don't know whether they produce raw milk or cheeses or whatever, but watching that in front of you with lots and lots of cows, like factory farmed milk, even if it wasn't factory farmed in the way that you see on some of the documentaries I watched, it's still pretty hard to see. And eventually all of those cows were killed or slaughtered and consumed. And so there's a piece of me that feels a bit ick about that, really. And whilst I was veganish, I was definitely, you know, shining torches on people's faces going, hey, are you thinking it like you're turning a blind eye to the animals?
You're one of them.
And now I'm one of them. And that feels, there's a piece of me that's like, oh, yeah, it does. You know, they are a sentient being. They have a nervous system, a life, a function, a thought process. The fear in their eyes as they're like ushered along the road and like yelled at and whipped to like walk in a line to get their udders pulled on by a pump. And I think I've mentioned this. Any woman that's ever breastfed and pumped their breasts understands the discomfort and disharmony that provides. And so, anyway, that's vegan for me was a definite ethical choice. And whilst I felt fairly good, I was trying to do veganism in a place where there is no sunshine or for a good chunk of the year. And that has a massive play on. I think Indians do really well in India to be vegetarian because they have the sun that gives so much power.
There is just
bodies.
a sun diet.
The sun diet?
Is that a thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
But we know the power of the sun. The first rays in the morning, the last rays.
But we don't photosynthesize our food or photosynthesize the sunshine. That's the only problem.
We might not photosynthesize, but I'm sure we're doing something to it.
Vitamin D.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Which is like one of the
Very
biggest,
helpful.
very, very helpful to a human body.
Well, one thing on the dairy farm, if it's an organic or regenerative or biodynamic farm, the calves don't go without milk. The farmer takes the excess.
That's
all.
really sweet.
Just-
However, any woman that has lactated before that has excess milk understands too that that excess comes at a cost. Some women less so, but women that have excess milk, like that's it's not excess because they're like, here's.
But is a
my-"
cow's milk the same as a female's milk?
I don't know, obviously.
Like the physiology and all that kind of stuff. I don't know enough about it to.
Well, yeah,
So
the
much.
baby, like it's still the same thing. Like the saliva of the cow's tongue, the baby cow's tongue that is touching the nipple of the mother cow, is creating the milk that baby calf needs. I mean, obviously, really good that is just a surplus of milk, but surely there's not that many cows with an excess surplus of milk that they've got enough to have biodynamic regenerative milk that's in our shops.
I don't know. I've never met them.
No,
I don't drink milk, so I don't.
no, you don't eat dairy at all.
Not really.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Okay, anyway, moving right along, vegetarian diet.
So vegetarian is all vegetables, obviously. But what does it include? What's the difference between vegetarian and vegan?
You eat animal products,
Like cheese and
products
stuff.
that have been created by animals. So honey is okay.
Right. Okay.
Cheese is okay. Butter is okay.
Yeah.
Dairy is okay.
Yeah. For me,
Kefir,
oh yeah, of course.
ghee.
So all that's vegetarian, but not vegan.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's vegan. The whole point of veganism is they don't
Yeah.
want to use the animal.
Yep. Is there a TCM? Vegan, vegetarian? Not option. What's the word?
It's called in China. It's called eat the food. See the food and eat it.
Oh, it's like the seafood,
It's like the seafood diet.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what we're talking about right now, but anyway, vegetarianism. What do you think about that?
Again, if you're ready to handle it, if your body's ready, sure. Whether it's a lifelong, like any diet, if your body's ready for it, that's fine. If you're not, and you're not akin to your own biochemical needs or your genetic nutritional needs, then you might get a short-term gain, but ultimately it's going to cause a lot of stress on the body.
Absolutely. So, how do we identify what that is going to be?
Firstly, it's hormonal, usually. You mean the symptoms of the diet, or what do you mean?
No, I mean, how do I identify what food I should eat? Because we can say, oh, we should eat like a caveman.
Okay, so I would tell patients that there's two main ways. There's a short and expensive way to finding out, or there's a long and cheap way of finding out. The short and expensive way of finding out is to go and get tested. Get tested for what your intolerances are, what your allergens are, what your markers are. It's usually a blood test, a salivary test. I think these days they do swabs and hair from memory. And they can tell you what your immune system reacts to. So when I did my test about 10 years ago, I think it was, little prick of the blood, first thing that came up was eggs. Slightly devastated. So I loved eating eggs. But I haven't had an egg since. So that's one way.
We eat eggs, Matt,
Good for you.
in our snacks every
No,
week.
no, I can have them in something. I just can't have like an egg on toast. I'd get a croaky throat for about 3 weeks. Every time. That's just what I reacted to.
Okay.
Next argument. No. So the other way, the long and cheaper way is to simply develop a relationship with your body. Write down what you eat. Write down how you felt, how you slept, what your poo was like, how much water you drank, your mood for that day, your energy levels, etc. And start mapping out that over 7 to 10 days to start. And then you'll be able to see the pattern in how you're feeling, what you're eating, what you react to.
But that's just suggesting that it's related to, that all of those things are related to the food you're eating.
Well, this is the very start, yeah.
Okay.
So it's developing a relationship with that. You have to know what you're bringing from the external world into the internal world.
Okay,
how
but then
you
we
relate
should
to
also
that.
take into relationship, if we're going to do that, you should also be taking into consideration every
Stimulus and
or relationship you're having to people in your environment.
you can do, but we're just talking about food, aren't we?
However, how are you going to identify whether it was the food or the situation you walked into?
Well, it's paying attention initially. So I was writing something down. If you're not sure if it's the food or the relationship, be really simple with the food. Get as simple as you can with the food. See
How would we do that? Give me an example.
So if you have a plate with 10 things on it,
No, I want you to give me an example of what sort of diet I should eat so that I can get really clear about what is.
and I'm telling you, Nuala, keep it really simple on the plate.
10 things.
No, bring it down to 3.
Okay, what 3
Two
things?
or 3 things. Let's go chicken, carrot, broccoli.
Okay. So when do I have that every day?
Have that today.
That's all. I usually eat 3 meals, Matt.
Okay, Nuala. Have that for breakfast.
Breakfast.
Have a variety of that for either lunch or dinner.
So the same 3 foods
Sure.
for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Breakfast and lunch. You can add some nuts or whatever you want to it as well. Then in the evening, try something different, like another protein source.
Like what? Give me.
Beef.
Beef with what?
Beef with what was before?
Carrot and broccoli.
Carrot, broccoli. Let's go potato and spinach. I should be a chef coming up with these.
I will not come to your restaurant. Okay. So I've got, and how do I eat that?
So
for
I
a
would
week?
give you a list of different foods to eat. I'll give you 4 different types of protein. Let's say fish, chicken, beef, and pick another one. Anyone.
I don't know any other animal that I'd eat.
Lamb. 4 different types of proteins. I would have, let's say, a dozen or so different vegetables, more so if you can. Have those on a 4-day rotation diet. So
How long?
whatever you eat on Monday, don't eat again until Friday. There's 3 grades of that. You can rotate the protein sources only, the protein and vegetable sources as well, but with the vegetable have nothing on that genome. So if you have broccoli on a particular day, having nothing that is with a stem.
Can it be green?
Yes.
So
And
no.
then simply paying attention to how you feel after the meal.
Okay.
And if there is an extra stress in the day, put that in the diary as well.
But how do I even know what's stressful?
How long is the relationship stress will likely come and go in little waves.
Okay.
The food stress will likely be there all the time because food retention time can be 55 to 72 hours. So while you've got one atom of that in your system, you're going to keep producing pro-inflammatory markers the entire time. But if you have it all day, every day, especially the people that have the same kind of breakfast every day, you know, those people, they develop a numbness to their own digestive tract.
All right, Luana, we're on to this, babe. We're going to do something different. No more pancakes and eggs and yogurt and berries. We have like probably...
Go the chicken.
We're going chicken, carrots and broccoli tomorrow, babe.
You are welcome.
All right. So that is going to give us a bit of an indicator.
So you would do that for minimum 10 days.
Yeah, well, we've got to do it 12 days because we're on a 4-day rotation.
Okay, 12 days it is. And then from there, you would at least be able to narrow down what makes you feel what.
Yeah, but I'm only eating 16 foods.
So then you pick the ones that make you feel good or you don't react to or that you do react to, however you want to do it, Nuala.
Okay,
However your brain works with
I'm
that.
asking you.
Then you pick another set of foods and do that again. But most people only eat 8 to 12 foods in their entire diet.
Yeah, okay.
So variety.
I mean, it is true, isn't it? It is difficult sometimes to think outside the box when we have these staples that we know and, trust or believe in. Interesting that, I mean, it's not that interesting, but realistically, the thing is, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we all grew up with a different, like we started with a different base microbiome. We started with a different base energy system. We started with a different base, like whole energy system. So we're always going to need individualized care when it comes to diet and consumption of food. And yet we tend not to do that. And we were talking just the other day about families and how we, as a family, you know, you want to cook the one meal and everyone eats the same thing. And like, how many times have I gone through this idea of how I'm meant to eat or how my child is meant to consume food at 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I have a 4-year-old, so that's as far as I've got thus far. But it's like I slowly watch them and I try more and more to step out of their way and listen to what they're telling me. And like I said, my oldest daughter is a bit of a breatharian. She can live off air sometimes and she's thriving. And I concern myself with the emotion that must be happening. She must be in overdrive. She's in adrenal cortisol hyper. You know, there must be this aspect happening. And maybe that's the case. Haven't ruled it out just yet. However, it's sometimes the way that she is, and she's quite a picky eater at times. And when I've done her human design or certain things, I've identified that that's pretty common for her type of person with all these layers from that energetic sphere or that perspective. From a TCM perspective, it's so important that pickiness actually could be an intuition. And it's a guiding light of what it is. So whilst you're suggesting that we eat 12 foods over the 16 foods over the 12 days, get clear and identify that clarity, it's almost like we're already pretty clear on those things.
Of course
right?
we know. Of course we do. But how many people exercise it?
I know, for sure. And I mean, there's points in time where but I will like to say that when I was consuming certain foods or not consuming certain foods, oh, this is silly. When I was not consuming animal product, for me to consume certain grains, I was unable to digest them. When I started consuming different foods, so whether I incorporated dairy or cheese or eggs or something along those lines.
With the grains or separate?
With the grains, let's say they were together. Or even separate. I was then able to consume them without any discomfort or digestive discomfort. And then slowly, as I've changed my diet again and started to eat an even more vastly varied diet, incorporating all sorts of foods, I find that I'm able to consume more again. So my point is that what worked for you yesterday when you did your 16 foods over 12 days, in time is going to change and adjust.
Absolutely.
So that test that you did 10 years ago that identified that eggs were no good for you would be very different today. And I think that's a really important thing to just note, that you can, your gut is forever changing whilst you do have, do you remember what that's called? That base microbiome? Anyway, you've got this base microbiome and that has a base, but there is a change and there's a balance that your body's creating in order to get the best out of your food. It is doing that for you. Yeah. Hence why it's showing you what's not working right now, showing you through bloating or digestive disharmony or lack of sleep or whatever it is. It's giving you the feedback to whatever might be in your stimulus. And that is where I come back to that spleen element, right? That idea of that center, heaven and earth, central point. Everything moves from that point. Yep. It separates from there. So whilst if that center is weak, from an energetics perspective, it doesn't matter what you're going to eat. It's not really about what foods it is specifically. However, we can use that as a way of guiding us to what's serving us and all of those pieces.
Correcto.
So
what's the next one?
The other thing we want to talk about was just, I think there's some big conversation around how to best lose weight. Weight loss is massive in our culture because why, Matt?
Why is weight loss?
So big?
Well, because you've got to be beautiful and skinny and stuff, right? That's what society demands of us.
Wouldn't you
From a
say
superficial-
that potentially health is a functioning body that can move and sit and stand and be comfortable in the way that it moves?
Health is. You asked me about weight loss.
I did, but you then...
So I'm going to say the best way to lose weight is convincing the body it's healthy enough to drop the weight, because it's usually not fat, it's fluid. So a healthy functioning body should be able to move freely without pain, without restriction, should have healthy bowel movements daily, should do all the things we spoke about, episodes 2 and 3.
Well, if...
And
a
a healthy body should really have the capabilities to adapt in any environment. So its capacity for change should be very, very deep. However, when we're talking about weight loss is a billion-trillion-dollar industry, and there's lots of drugs that they can sell, there's lots of injections, there's lots of shakes, meals, all the things, and a lot of these shakes and bars and whatever else there is out there, they contain a lot of metabolic stimulants that convince you that the quote-unquote science has proven to fasten your metabolic rate.
Which does?
Well, there's heaps of them that do.
No, but what does it do?
Well, it tells you it speeds up the cell metabolism. Therefore, it... So how it actually works, similar to coffee in a way. When you drink coffee or you take a metabolic stimulant, you speed up cell metabolism. So you actually, from a cellular viewpoint, live more minutes per minute. So over time, your body ages faster than your chronological age. Eventually, your thyroid has to slow down in an attempt to match your biological age and your chronological age, because if the gap's too big, that's really bad news for the hormonal system. It's under too much stress already. But you're having these meal replacement bars, and it might work for a little bit, then all of a sudden you start fluid retention, then the moods, and then et cetera, then all of a sudden you're bigger than what you were originally. Mm-hmm. That can happen with weight loss and weight gain. So there's a body sculpting. They do sort of similar to bodybuilding. They get down to such a low body fat percentage, way below healthy. For a woman, 15% is considered sort of on the low end. Anything below that, you'd get in trouble. For a guy, it's less than 10. The guys get down to 3. Some women get down to 9. And it's very dangerous unless you know what you're doing. So as soon as they get off that particular diet, they just blow up, and the pendulum swings completely the other way. Yep.
You nailed it. Thank you. So my next question.
We were going to go into calories, weren't we?
Yeah, well, calorie counting, and just that idea of what calorie counting is all about, because obviously what I heard between the unicorns and the dips and tangents was that, when we follow where the money goes, well, we can understand why we do certain things or why things are pushed in a certain way. I feel like there was a point you were going to say about protein shakes or the sort of fat loss bars and shakes where they sell you the idea that they actually have a metabolic impact, but they're not actually doing that.
No, they say they have a metabolic impact, which technically is true because they do something to your metabolism. So they technically can't not have an impact.
But the impact they're saying they're having, may or might not be having.
Tells you it strips fat.
Yes.
A lot of them. That's the typical classic, I don't know, brands anyway. But the classic meal replacement shake will say it strips fat, you don't need to eat. This will swell the stomach so you don't feel hungry, you don't eat so you won't gain weight. The hormonal consequence from that is huge. actually has the adverse effects. That means then your body is fighting itself.
Oh, so we create autoimmune diseases.
Long enough, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So that's kind of the seed of that. A lot of them will tell you that there's X amount of calories. So the whole calorie counting thing, if you look at it from a purely on paper logical viewpoint, the whole science is if you consume less calories than you're burning, you'll lose weight. You can see the kind of half logic in that, right?
Yeah.
However, the body works on a different logic. So we use 55% of our entire caloric intake to get food from mouth to bum.
How much? 55%.
55%.
Okay.
We use about 20 to 25% just to see.
Okay, so I've only got like 20% left.
Yeah, that's usually used for daily activities, doing work, going to the toilet, playing with your kids, etc. All that kind of stuff. So what system do you want to short circuit to make sure you starve yourself to lose the weight?
Confusing, yeah.
The most calorie consuming thing that you can do you know? Take a guess.
Using your brain?
No. Similar, very close. So in that area.
Sniffing. I know, like, it feels like it
You just
uses
expected you to say that.
so much energy sometimes when I have to unsniff something. And I'm like, oh, oof.
What you do in your own time, I will not judge. So the activity that burns the most calories
Not
is
sniffing.
actually looking at a bright screen in a dark room and adjusting your eyes.
The adjustment of the eyes. What if you got blue eyes?
What if you've got brown eyes?
Well, blue eyes apparently are better at seeing in the dark.
Okay. Sure. So you say that because you've
Doesn't
got blue
matter.
eyes?
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't mean I can have more screen time.
Not for you, no.
Not for me. No, okay, interesting. Yeah, wow.
We should also add that I think it's the World Health Organization classifies starvation at 2,100 calories a day or less. Most meal replacement are anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500.
Oh, okay. So, right. Very clear that sort of stuff is through the function of starvation. I remember an interesting story. I don't know why this was the case, but we had these, my partner had these, they were weight loss tablets. I didn't actually really understand at the time. This was like literally 13 years ago when we were living in a like this little city, and I was like a bit bored.
Swedish tablets?
Yes. I didn't actually know what they were, but I just sort of was like, my partner said that when he used to have to strip weight for like training, not that he did that very often, but he did it once when he was like had a knee reconstruction and wanted to like get back to fit quick. And anyway, he still had these tablets. So then I was like at the end of a summer in Sweden. I was like, I'm getting fit. And
how
anyway,
old were you?
Oh, old enough to know better. 13 years ago, 20 something. And anyway, I was like, so I had one, and I just started like, and I hang out with my friend, and we didn't have jobs at the time, or maybe we did, but we worked the weekends. We worked at a pub. Right. And I mean, I was like, yeah, it was just before I started. Like I'd worked as a clinician, but then I was living in this space. I didn't have a clinic. So I was very like out of my world anyway, living the life. I would have one of these tablets, and I would go and sit at the coffee shop, as you do when you're not working, and you drink coffee.
I thought you were going to say you're writing a screenplay.
Yeah, no. Oh, that's what you're meant to do, right? At the coffee shop. No, I was just sitting drinking coffee, and I don't drink coffee. I don't do caffeine. So I was like,
what could go wrong?
Buzzing, and then we'd go for a walk after our coffee.
Yeah.
And it was like, anyway, it was no sunshine. It was pretty dreary world. Yeah. And so for about 3 weeks, I would have one of these capsules. Probably didn't have any food. I'd go in for 3 weeks, yeah. And then after 2 weeks, I said to my partner, I'm like, I haven't lost a weight, but I feel like my heart is about to like.
Jump out of the chest.
He's like, oh, have you looked what's on it? And I was like, oh my God, I haven't even looked what I'm taking. I just saw the like Sprite colored thing. It was like, I don't know.
Was it caffeine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was like at the front of it, it's obviously in Swedish. I didn't read Swedish back then.
Right.
But it was like
That's Sweden's problem. Sweden's fault.
Swedish fault. But it's like 5 times something caffeine. It was like 500 milligrams of caffeine. And then I would go and drink a black coffee
How
on
much?
an empty
How
stomach.
much caffeine?
I don't know, some ridiculous amount. Like it was
Hundreds.
a lot. And I was wondering why I was having like heart palpitations, and I was like, I didn't lose a single kilo.
Weird.
Not a single kilo.
Your body must have just been scrapping onto anything it could hold itself onto.
Anyway,
It's
after
like 35
that,
coffees a day.
oh my gosh, and I don't drink coffee and hadn't.
Well, you don't need to anymore because
Never.
you've had that.
I'm
still
done.
coming down.
Actually, no, what it wasn't 3 weeks. It was probably about 5 days until I came to and went, holy hell, what are you doing? Anyway, what a crazy
Your body would have
world.
aged 500 years in that week.
Can you tell?
Yeah, but oh no, I can't say that.
But yeah, anyway, it was quite an interesting situation because obviously I didn't need to lose any weight. I don't know what I
You
was
didn't
thinking.
need to lose weight, and
No.
you didn't lose weight.
Nope.
So this is not an endorsement for that company.
No, that I don't understand what it was colourful packet.
Oh,
Obviously, I got sold on the colourful packet, so I was having Tic Tacs.
I mean, we're open to sponsors, but I don't think that company's going to cut it.
But just a bit of a like soft landing into the reality of
Oh.
someone who had been, I'd done like 5 years or 4 years of study at that point. I'd practiced as a clinician for a year. Sorry to any of those patients. No, you know what? It's so much easier to treat other people than it is to treat yourself, especially in a space when you're a little bit younger and you're not quite embodying what you're practicing. Probably for the last, say, 8 years, I have absolutely embodied the things that I practice. So it's a slightly very different space. But yeah, 15 years ago when I was just,
Good old days.
it was quite an interesting situation. But anyway, just reminding people out there that were doing the things that I was doing then, going, oh yeah, I'll just give it a try.
I think the closest thing I've come to that is when I lived in France. You just go from appointment, meeting person to person, and just have an espresso every time.
Oh yeah.
So I would have anywhere in the neighbourhood of 9 to 15 espressos a day. I could see through time. You'd have red wine with dinner at night.
Yeah.
Crash and burn in bed. Water was barely a thing.
No.
Maybe a cup a day. A litre if you were real bad.
Oh, a liter.
You do that for a ski season.
Oh yeah.
And then as soon as that stops, you just fall into an absolute heap.
Yeah. Well, that was me. I hung out. I have a few friends that played football in France, and we were staying. I think we stayed with them for a week twice over the holiday that I was on, and and they were like, they train in the evening, so like through the day they're just hanging out, and so I think we sat at a coffee shop one day, and I liked the idea of the macchiato, a little bit of milk, a little bit of coffee. Just, I don't know. Anyway, I had like 4 macchiatos. I don't drink coffee. And I was like, and they were like, do you want another one? And I was like, yeah. Like
No, that's
thinking
just what they do.
drinking alcohol or something, or like water
Shot.
or whatever.
I'll have a double.
I'll take a double. But then I just drink these. Yeah, anyway, this comes back to what we've talked about with coffee and just this whole thing with that stimulant that takes you off this planet and takes you away. And that experience with the coffee in France was after my experience with my Sweden coffee tablet situation.
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting...
Should try that here just to see how it compares.
Oh man, no way. I can't, coffee to me, and it's funny because I will tell patients that all the time. I'm like, coffee is not good. They're like, oh, and it's so easy for me to say. Whereas I have clinician friends that drink coffee and they're like, coffee's not that bad.
Well, we
Like
spoke
you
about
too.
coffee last
week.
time.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You can be very, very useful, and it can work against you.
Absolutely. Just have a good meal. Usually you'll come out on top. Coffee's, not really the thing that...
It's not your thing.
No.
I like coffee. I drink coffee.
Oh my God,
Blasphemy. Please.
Can't believe it. All right,
It is
guys.
divine, and I've mastered it.
So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Realistically, Matt, what are we doing?
So is there any more diets that we...
I mean, there's the FODMAPs diet or a gluten-free
So the
diet.
FODMAP is that's the elimination diet?
No, that'd be the elimination diet. Well, FODMAPs
right.
is a form of elimination.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got FODMAPs is like
Okay.
it stands for things.
Okay.
And it has like the different sections, and you only eat.
Food. What can O be?
Matt, we're not playing this game. Either way, was quite a popular diet for a time for people with IBS, which was quite a popularly diagnosed illness for women. Still is probably quite popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't talk about it because we both don't understand it, and we probably need a dietitian to communicate about that.
It's been around for a while.
My biggest thing with any of these diets is just that anything dietary related, we've got to take it from that holistic perspective. You're not just your diet, but what you consume has a massive impact on how you feel when you consume food. I think is really important too. So if you're consuming something that brings you joy, you're more likely to take the good of that than if you're consuming something that creates stress.
Yeah, I think any dietary philosophy, the main ingredient is having a relationship with your body. Because you can have a superfood that an expert tells you is a superfood. But what if you react to that food? Then it's not a superfood for you. So you've got to develop that relationship with your body. Pay attention to how you feel when you eat. And also, in this rushing world that we live in, finding that time and space to lower the heart rate just a little bit, get away from the screen, then enjoy the food.
Yeah, do not consume in front of a TV.
And being attached to any diet, really, and thinking that's your saviour forever that's as dangerous.
Yeah, and a bit of a reminder that everything's changing. Your cells are changing based on the stimulus that you're providing for them. So if you keep providing the exact same thing, but you're actually, like food-wise, but you're actually expanding or experiencing growth, or even not growth, but experiencing life in another way, it's going to have an impact and you're going to hold yourself back essentially, instead of just like keep being nudged by that inner intuition that keeps driving you forward and reminding you of what's important. So I guess from my perspective, the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of diets, it's not really about the diet itself. It's about your connection to self. And I think that's something that we both can agree on.
It's connection to the food as well.
Totally. And like we spoke about that in terms of or maybe we didn't, but actually this is what I wanted to touch on. Food and eating food and digesting starts when the moment you choose the food you're going to consume. And once you've chosen the food that you're going to consume, the next part of that is being in the aromatherapy of cooking that food and being around that. That is also one of the most important and powerful parts of digestion. It helps and strengthens the digestion and the ability for your body to consume that food. The other thing is that once you've then smelt the food, you've felt the aromas, your body has identified some of those things, maybe through knowledge of what it's consumed before, or maybe it just tantalizes the taste buds and makes you go, wow, this smells really good. This is why I thought sniffing was one of the most energy.
Little to no judgment here.
Anyway. But then once you've smelt all of those good aromas, then you sit down and you consume the food. And when you're consuming the food, well, your body doesn't start from nothing. It starts from the processes that were seeing the food, exploring the food, touching the food, cooking the food,
chewing the food.
Engaging with it.
Gulping it down.
Now we're chewing the food and we're spending time to sit with the food. Ideally, we're enjoying our space while consuming the food. If we're creating stress around food and eating at any point on the journey of life, so I see that a lot with parents with little people. It's so stressful. It is so annoying. They don't want to eat what you've given them, but maybe that's their intuition guiding them. Maybe that's them manipulating you. Who knows what the answer is? However, I think if we give our little people a little bit more, what's that called? When you give them a bit more respect, in what they're choosing. We might find that what they're choosing is actually what they need to choose for themselves. And in that moment, like, trust their guidance. However, being really conscious of the digestion starting long before you actually put fork to mouth.
And also finishing long after you finish the meal,
Yeah.
like 3 days after.
Well, ideally not, right? That's too...
Well, that's how long it can stay in you.
I know, but that's probably not a good thing.
It depends on the body. 55 to 72,
Yeah, I know, but
according
it's
to
still,
the research.
but it's still too long. I've watched a really interesting documentary where, what's that, mouth to anus?
Entron.
Entron. But what's that processing?
Oh,
It's called something. Either way, the process of food going into the mouth to out the anus is in cultures where they're used to eating non-processed foods, and they're used to collecting their food, growing their food, growing it from the source, right? The initial seed into earth aspect, then collecting the food, then cooking the food, and all of those pieces. They have a much shorter mouth to anus time.
that's the Entron.
The entron.
Yeah.
It's not called entron though. Entron is mouth to anus, the energy.
That's the tube.
The tube, yeah, that's not the process of the digestion.
Oh, I don't know. I can tell you the digestive tract in carnivores, just basically what you just said. Mm-hmm. There's a guy that did, I think he was some kind of scientist, and he did 400 cadavers. And what he found was the vegetarians had double the length of the entron than carnivores did in every animal and every person. So it takes twice as long to extract the proteins and fibers out of the vegetable matter than it does from the carnivorous entron.
However, these people that they were exploring, alive people, because there's obviously very different cadavers
Slightly,
to dead
yeah.
people, they were consuming beans and rice and grains, and they had a much faster rate. They were, what even is that word? So annoying, I can't think of it. But
Just think about it just as we finish.
Yes, but from the moment that they consumed the food, they
Yeah.
digested within like between 6 and 10 hours, or 4 and 6 hours. Whereas the man who sat and ate the meal with them was a white guy from outside coming in, and I mean that's just a one-off person, but it was very clear that it took him 10 to 14 hours to actually digest the food.
Where were they, did you say?
Africa.
Because that's
And I
a
don't know what
different
African
climate,
country.
different genome altogether. Because a lot of it depends on your genome. So an Eskimo would digest food a lot different than someone who lives at the Caribbean, and then someone who lives in between. So I think that's got to be factored in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was quite an interesting thing that they had, because I think that is a bit of a sign of health when you're able to actually digest your food quickly. And
How quick's too quick, would you say?
oh, I mean, there's obviously a too quick. I have patients sometimes that come in like every time I need a shit. Oh my gosh. That's not ideal.
You can do the beetroot test.
Yes, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So today, I hope you can take away from this. We have you choose yourself 16 foods over a 12-day period. Eat only those. Make sure that you're changing every 4 days. So you've got one every day. Do you change every day? Every 4 days.
Every 4 or 5 days, rotate.
Rotate the foods that you're eating.
Yep.
Wow, it's a bit. Anyway, okay, give that a try, and then you could try the beetroot test, and where you eat beetroot and see how long it takes to come through, and then you could do a bit more of a thing. Go to the markets, choose your food, cut your food up, cook your food, sit with some friends, eat a meal together, enjoy yourself, and see how that makes you feel too.
I'd also put a challenge out there for the next, say, 6 weeks. Next time you go to the shop or the markets, get something you've never eaten before, never seen before, never prepared before, and see how you go with that.
Best of luck, everyone. Happy eating.
Bon appetit.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.